Hey there, welcome to Becoming More Me, where we bring together self discovery, healing, and empowerment to help you apply it to your life and business for accelerated transformation, healing, growth, and relaxed, pleasure fueled success. I'm your host, Theresa Levine, and I'm an ADHD entrepreneurial mom of 4 boys who is always in the process of embracing the never ending journey of becoming. I am an EFT master practitioner and hypnotherapist, as well as a law of attraction life coach. And today I have a very special guest, someone who really embodies soul growth and transformation, and who I'm delighted to call a friend and brother. Please join me in welcoming Joey Labossiere, an energetic guide, activator, and coach. Joey has an incredible ability to help people break through their limitations, clear ancestral trauma, and tap into their spirit guides. He's not only a hypnotherapist like me, but also a powerful force for healing and connection. He brings a unique perspective to the table, one that I'm excited to get into today, that is rooted in deep spiritual experiences, personal transformation, and a sincere desire to really help others reclaim their power. In my experience, Joey just really genuinely wants to help other people shine. He has a beautiful following on social media that he gathers together weekly in this space that he's created to encourage live meditation where people can really show up as their authentic selves. He's also navigating life as a father of 2 young children and stepping fully into his entrepreneurial path. We had the pleasure of meeting and spending a transformative weekend together back in May up in Chilliwack, British Columbia, and that really centered and cemented our friendship. Today, we're going to share stories of healing, connecting to the subconscious, and how we can all activate our own magic in this journey of life. It all starts now. Welcome, Joey. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, stoked. Really, really excited. This is kind of what we talked about the first time I think we chatted on Zoom about maybe doing this, and so
Yeah,
yeah,
been a long
I'm
time
pumped
coming.
for
We
sure.
had some fun doing a workshop together a couple months ago, and that kind of felt similar, but this will be a nice conversation. I'm glad we get to share it with other people. So,
Yeah,
I always like to start by just learning a little bit about you, who you are
yep,
outside of the hypnotherapy world and your
sure.
work and everything else. Like, what's
Yeah,
your routine like? What do you like to drink in the morning?
yeah.
Who are you?
So I am a super, I would call kind of jock. Just I love throwing weights around and playing hockey and playing baseball and getting outside and moving my body. I love making sure I'm hydrated in the morning and drinking my coffee, though. I'm a big coffee guy. Love taking
Hmm.
my time with that and sipping on it. Yeah, just father of 2 amazing kids. Just very dedicated to being the most present father I can be right now. So it's a big thing that I think I kind of missed out on as a kid with my parents being so busy and they provided so well. So focused on that. Lighthearted, fun, I would say for the most part. Love
Yeah.
to snowboard, love to just be outside. Big surfer, snowboarder, kind of adrenaline junkie too.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's base. Love to play guitar and sing. Um, yeah, that's
I
a
did
little
not
bit
know
of
that. I do too.
yeah, yeah. Okay, we got more to talk about there.
I
Yeah,
haven't picked up an axe in a long time, though. It'd probably be pretty
right.
ugly, but the pipes are usually pretty warmed up.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Actually, I have it. I always have it right here. So when I'm
Oh,
in between sessions with clients or I just realized like how much of that expression piece has been not missing but not haven't been putting the same type of intention I would with my body
hmm.
into my art and finding
Yeah.
more art just being yeah, and that's a big one for me is playing and singing.
I wonder if you find this too. When I was younger, I used to write lyrics and songs. I played in a
Yep.
band. We
Yeah,
did performances
cool.
and things. And then as I got older and started doing this work, both with EFT
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
hypnotherapy, I kind of felt like writing sessions for my clients became like
Mm-hmm.
writing lyrics. It was like I was
Mm.
creating this healing journey that spoke to
Mm-hmm.
like the heart or soul
Mm-hmm.
of whoever I was working
Mm-hmm.
with, very
Mm-hmm.
much like I had hoped my music and lyrics would when I was younger.
Yeah. I didn't even notice I did that, but now that you say it, I'm like, oh my gosh. I
Yeah, it was a
did.
full
And
circle moment for me. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"Oh, my inner child's really excited about this
for
because I
sure.
loved this as a kid, and I had these
Yeah.
dreams of like, being this stage artist and all this, fame and everything else that I
Right.
couldn't care less about now." But
Well, I think for me, it happened more in well, with my clients, but like when I started leading meditations on social media, I was just doing like, I do them every Sunday.
yeah.
It's that ability to go, oh, what can we journey into today? What kind of
Mhm.
stage can I set? What kind of story can we write? What kind of opportunity can we welcome in? Because that's, when we journey in the inner world, it's like there's so
Yeah.
much we can tap into. Well, everything, it's infinite. So yeah, I didn't realize that, but I was writing stories there.
Hmm.
I love it. Thanks for reflecting that back. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, I had that aha moment when I was writing my
Mm,
book because just like writing lyrics, I literally had this like little library in my basement. When my friends would come over, we wouldn't play with Barbies, we would write
yeah,
books. Like
love it.
had a card catalog and everything, the little rubber stamp,
Come on.
like all the things. And then I grew up to be a best-selling author. So that
Go
was a
figure.
full circle thing
Of
too.
course.
So, yeah, who knew? But yeah, so I'd love to get into a little bit of your journey because it's been really quite a ride, overcoming depression,
Oh yeah.
anxiety, stepping more into like your spiritual journey
Yeah.
recently. Can you share a bit of what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So grew up on the in the prairies in Canada, in central Canada. Grew up on a farm, grain farm and hog farm with my family, and uh, third generation, I think, of that, and Roman Catholic upbringing. So did my communion and my confirmation, and we were pretty big on church in the early years. And then once I turned about 10 or 11, it was kind of more of we're going to go to church on Sunday, and then we're going to go to church. Now we're just going to go to church on Easter and Christmas,
Mhm.
and kind of did that thing. And my parents were
Similarly.
never super pushy with it. So I was really grateful for that. And so that was my first kind of introduction to God, or any type of spirituality, was my upbringing. But then that took a funny turn, and I'm going to get pretty vulnerable here. But I think it's a funny story now. When I was 11, I moved from the farm to a small town. And in this small town, the church was, I could throw a rock at it. It's like a block down the road. And small French Canadian town. Most French Canadian towns are very Catholic, very, you know, um, they're very much the same across the board.
Okay.
Okay, we're French Canadian and Roman Catholic. And in grade 7, we had a very religious teacher, and we were still saying the Lord's Prayer in class before school. I remember this. And then we had this opportunity to go to confession. And so we're like, okay, I guess, do you guys want to go to confession? I'm like, well, I don't want to stay in class. I'm going to go to confession. So I go to confession one day, and I hadn't been really to church much, but I'd still been in the church. I understood the church. I understood sinning. I understood all these things that I was
Mhm.
kind of taught and brought up with. And so I go to confession one day, and I felt this guilt, and I'm 11 or 12. So I'm 12. You can imagine what you start discovering at 12 around about your
Yep.
body, right? And so this guy discovered his body quite a bit around that age. And and so, but I remember going to church going, shit, I'm going to hell if I don't confess about this.
Oh man.
Right. So I know probably some of your listeners go, fuck, I'm sorry for swearing, but like
Swear
they're
away.
gonna be, yeah, they're gonna be like, fuck, I have this Catholic guilt
Same
too.
guilt and shame
Yeah,
over
right.
normal
Right.
things.
So I remember getting in the confession booth, and I'm sitting there, and this thing slides open, and there's this old man there, and he's like 70 some years old. And I'm like, yeah, so blah, 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 confess your sins. I'm like, yeah. So, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to say it. Like, I can't not say it. I'm like, I don't want to be damned for eternity. And so I end up telling this old man that I'm basically, exploring my body. And as soon as I do it, as soon as I left my mouth, I could feel this disconnect happen.
Mm.
And I was like, what the fuck did I just do? Who, like, it wasn't against the church, but who the heck's this guy to tell me that I have to tell him so he can relay a message? And it just all just boom in that moment,
Yeah.
a real moment of presence, and like anchored, like intuition going, this ain't it.
Hmm.
So I remember telling him, he forgave me. I left, and I just felt gross.
Yeah.
I felt gross, and I didn't love it. And that moment was a real catalyst for me, because I kind of went from Catholic to not necessarily atheist. I don't think that would be the right term, but like I disconnected from the church completely. I was like, nope, that was it. And from that day on, like that day forward, the only time I kind of went to church, I think I went to church a few times for Christmas to basically make my grandparents happy that we were
Hmm.
going, and just that kind of stuff, and funerals. And, but that was it until kind of my dark night of the soul in 2016, 2015, when like, I was a correctional officer for 10 years. So I worked in maximum security prison in Canada, and, seen some stuff and responded to quite a bit of traumatic events and a lot of blood and a lot of violence. That mixed with, my own stuff kind of surfacing in my own life, as trauma does and kind of surfaces when it needs to be healed. Um, just brought me in a big loop of really deep sadness, a lot of like suppressing with alcohol, drugs, um, partying, just really anything to get away from me. I
Right.
would do, whether it was the gym, obsessing in the gym,
Yeah.
or, be going on binges with food, binges with porn, like you name it. Like if I had an out, I'm in, I'm going to take that
Yeah.
route, because I just didn't know how to sit with myself. And I didn't know even what myself was trying to tell me. So that really hit hard. And, had some kids in the meantime, which is obviously the biggest blessing, and some traumatic moments with the birth of my daughter. Almost lost my wife at the time and my daughter that day. A lot of things all happened at the same time, as sometimes,
Wow.
as when it rains, of course. But that moment, those moments, I mean, they break you open. They break you or they break you open, and I was at the point where I would say it was either kill myself or change, and it's hard to say that when you have it all. Like, it's hard to look back, maybe not so much now, but at the time going, I have a 6-figure income. I have a 10-acre property hobby farm with little goats and chickens. I got 2 healthy babies. I have the $1 million family, as they say,
Hmm.
everything, food, money in the bank, savings, loving wife, you name it, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, just completely dead inside. And I remember having some moments where I collapsed on the porch of my house in the sun, just finally giving up, and just going like, look, I'm done. Like, I don't know what to do, what else to do here. I'm done. Help me. I'm just praying to God, even though I didn't know what God was at that time in my life. And in 2017, between Christmas and New Year's, we, my brother and I, so it's my brother, my younger brother Josh, my buddy Dylan, and my friend Mike. We were Canadian. We like ice fishing. We did a lot of it. And I still love it to this day. But we took off one day between Christmas and New Year's to go to a lake, about an hour and a half drive from our house. And we come home. It's about 6 p.m., in December. So it's dark early.
Yep.
And we're pulling 2 snowmobiles on a trailer. We have a bunch of gear all over my brother and I in the back seat. Like, we're not even seat belted in. We're so exhausted. We just got in the truck, gear everywhere. And I fall asleep. And we're driving down the highway. And all I remember is hearing, fuck. And I wake up, I look, and the truck's spinning on the highway. We're doing like 360s on, we hit some black ice. And I don't know what's going on, but I remember looking over to my brother, and his eyes locked with mine. And it was that moment of like, no way, like this can't be happening. Like, is this it? And everything slowed down, like the movies. Like, it
Yep.
literally, time just went.
Yep.
And that moment with Josh felt like 5 minutes of locking eyes with him and the fear I've seen. And I just remember grabbing the seat in front of me and going, fuck, please. And I remember seeing my kids in my mind. Wasn't this life flashing before your eyes, but my 2 children. And I'm like, no way this is happening. And we end up we're doing about 100 cases, about 60 miles an hour on the highway. And we end up going into the ditch sideways. The snowmobiles get thrown off the trailer. The truck goes in, but of course it snowed quite heavy the night before, quite a bit of snow in the ditch. The truck went in sideways, hit this, and went and sat perfectly. Nobody, a couple scratches, but that's it.
Wow.
But that moment I call it my NDE, right? Like, yeah, maybe I wasn't fighting for my life, but that was a moment enough to rock me to my core of like the preciousness of my life
Yeah.
and how lucky I was. And so, guaranteed, it was by divine orchestration to wake me up in the way that I needed, and everybody else, I'm sure. But the next morning, where it got really kind of cool is like the next morning, I remember waking up and feeling just like, okay, we're here.
Am I still
And I
there?
remember, I remember going and seeing my wife and my kids and giving them a kiss. I'm like, I'm going to go get a workout into my garage. I had a gym in my garage. And when I went to put my workout shoes on, I looked down and there's a dime in my heel. Normally that would mean nothing to me. There's a dime just sitting in the heel of my shoe. And I'm like, or in the insole. And I'm like, fuck. 2 weeks earlier, my mom was crying to me because she had just lost her mom, a few years prior to that, like 2 or 3 years. And it was Christmas time and she was missing her mom. And she goes, I just can't believe she always leaves me these dimes everywhere. And I'm like, what do you mean, Mom? Like, she's like, well, I know my mom leaves me dimes. Every time I see them, I know it's my mom. And I'm like, okay, Mom. Crazy. And that morning I wake up and there's a dime in my fucking shoe.
Oh my
and I
goodness.
get chills down my body. And I'm like,
I've got him.
And I'm like, holy shit. And that was a huge moment. Like I'm trying, like I could, I know she was there. Like whether she guided the truck in or made sure that we stayed safe. I don't know, but I know she was there and I could feel her now. Like, so that moment was a real spiritual, like, holy shit moment. And I went and worked out and I said, you know what, today, my life changes today. Like I can't do this anymore. I ended up losing my cell phone in the accident. Smartphone, like we all have, but it was consuming me like it does a lot of us. And I lost it in the truck that day. Couldn't find it forever. I found it like 4 months later in the truck seat. But I went 4 months, no cell phone.
Really?
I bought a slide text phone on Amazon with no data. Like no, you can't even if you wanted. And it was text and call only.
Okay.
I ended up getting into meditation and reading. And that's all I did for like 4 months.
Wow.
It was personal development, like, but more on a spiritual base. Like it was like, who am I? What am I? What can I do? How can I? And it was like within a few months, my whole life kind of shifted. And that's what kind of brought me to finding a guy talking about hypnosis and trauma. Intuition was like, ding, 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 go do this. Ended up going to train for it. And here I am. So, I mean, there's a lot in between, but that's kind of how things got to where they are.
It's amazing what happens when we take the distractions out of our life.
It's unreal. It's really,
But it's hard
really...
to do. I mean, I guess anybody could do what you did and get a more simple phone or whatever, but generally it's not easy to be distraction free. Hey, let's take a quick break from the episode and chat about the Becoming More Me signature program. Because the truth is, we can digest information and learning all day long, whether it's podcasts, books, audiobooks, courses, but ask yourself if it's really changing the way that you're showing up in your life. I know that for me, I felt like a collector of information for a very long time, and it wasn't until I started implementing nourishment of my nervous system and rewiring of my subconscious that I felt like I could really leverage that information to show up differently in my life. And that's why I created the Becoming More Me signature program, which allows me to work with clients in both one-on-one and group settings so that they can start showing up differently in their lives and actually creating and manifesting their desired outcomes like never before. If this is something that sounds even remotely interesting to you, I invite you to hop on a call where we're not even going to talk about you joining the program. We're just going to talk about you, and we're going to talk about what it is that you want out of your life and business right now. And I'm going to offer you some free, no strings insights on how you can start making those changes. And we'll take things from there, but it's always good to start with getting to know each other. So if that sounds interesting to you, and if the idea of perhaps looking further into a program like this might appeal to you now or in the near future, then hop over to gamechangingconversation.com, book a time, and we'll get to know each other. And this will help you to understand if something like this is going to be right for you moving forward. And the worst case scenario is you're going to walk away from this call with several things you can start doing right away to start getting closer to the changes you desire the most. Now back to the episode.
Especially today. Like it's everything. It's everywhere. And then we're so used to stimulus.
Right.
That I think one of the biggest problems, not problems, but where we struggle the most is with human in the world right now is we can't sit with ourselves.
Right.
Because it's like first thing you do, I do it too. I'm gonna notice times where it's like, oh, I don't have to eat much. This is in my hand. I'm just bing, 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 dopamine hit. Give me something. But it's
and then once you have really kids, powerful. It's like you feel like you have to have that connection because they're at school or they're wherever, and you can't turn it off because you need to be available, even if you're hundreds of miles away or whatever. So it really gets challenging, but not impossible.
Not impossible. No, not at all. No.
Yeah. So now, and you're at that point in your story, you're becoming a hypnotherapist and you're getting this like powerful connection to the subconscious.
Yes.
How would you describe the role of the subconscious in your healing process and in anybody's?
Yeah, I think there's so many doorways in the subconscious. Like, yes, there's your conditioning and your trauma that everything's stored, but it's also the gateway to the soul. Right. And so what I noticed through my own inner journey, and whether I did, do shamanic journeys, I do those quite often with myself, or I'll sit in just meditation. And it's where I go to return home. It's where I go to find the peace when the world is chaotic. And even when it's not chaotic, it's a place that, especially when I'm consistent, I can ask for clarity. And it might not come in that moment, but often does in little ways. It's a place to just stop this from running the show all the time, because we know how that is.
Right.
2 weeks ago, I was telling friends, I'm like, man, I had a week straight where I woke up in the morning, and first thing I did, and it was nonstop. I'm in the shower already in anxiety. I'm like, oh, right, I haven't meditated in like a week and a half.
Yeah. Catches up to you.
It catches up, but it also doesn't take very long if you give it a shot to tune back in. Because it can feel like I'm off the train again. I'm off the rails. I'm feeling chaotic, blah, blah. You're 2 days away from feeling back into alignment with your 2, 3, 4 things that help you, and there's might be 2 or 3 things that you've added that doesn't help you. Maybe you're drinking more than you should. Maybe you're, watching too much TV. Maybe you're not, yeah, exactly. It's usually the simple, basic things that can bring you back.
So do you do self-hypnosis and also meditation, or do you tend to lean more towards meditation, or both?
So funny you asked me this right now, because yesterday I'll do both. And often it's just like, I'll just walk down some stairs. I'll just do some inductions with myself. I'll snap my fingers with myself, because I'm so tuned into what that does for people that so yesterday was one of those days. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really good. I'm like, oh, I want to go deeper. So I just do a little self-induction and go into deeper trance state. And so I do both. And sometimes I don't even need to do self-hypnosis to get into that deeper state.
No.
Right.
No. I was just curious. And I'm also wondering if you can provide any tips, because in my ADHD listener environment and myself, I know that for me, hypnosis and EFT were like my favorite types of meditation, because traditional meditation was like, oh, I can't do it. And I would always get really frustrated. So how do you like to meditate, or what tips do you have? Because you're ADHD also.
Oh, I'm all, I think I run the ADHD department, just so you know. It's one of my biggest tips on anyone who's meditating is drop the fucking expectation of what it's supposed to look like. We put so much pressure, especially ADHDers. Like, we should be more focused. We should be able to, and then you beat yourself up into the ground. And by the time you go try, you're like, you're kind of stuck. But it's the expectation of what your meditation's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
ADHDers get frustrated because we think we're supposed to just like float off and somewhere and never have a thought or whatever, when
right,
really the whole practice is about
it's
continuing to
just
release the thoughts
right.
over and over and over again.
And just being with what's alive with presence.
Hmm.
It's like sometimes if I can't stop the thoughts, I'm like, all right, well, screw it. I'll just go to my senses. None of your senses you're given as a human can be experienced in the past or the future. They can't be experienced in your mind. They can only be experienced now. So that's the easiest thing to go to. What sense are you most connected to? Are you visual? Then visualize. Just see what you're seeing. Just let whatever you're seeing be there. Or if you're a feeler like myself, I'll just go in the body. I'll be like, what's alive right now? It might be some tingling in the hand. It might be some tension in my chest. But really going into those with curiosity and zero judgment on what they should be or shouldn't be. And by the time I do that for 5 minutes, and it'll change. It'll be like, oh, there's some tingling here, little tension in my hip. I'll move into that. Just breathe with it. Just be with it. Kind of
Yeah.
welcoming it in. Just like, hey,
Hmm.
I see you, and then it'll move. So I often do that for myself, especially in the beginning of my meditations. Just tune into my body and see what's there. Um, Guided stuff really helps, and hypnosis. Like I always tell people, I think a lot of, I hope maybe this is gonna rock some people or annoy some people, but I
Oh,
think a
go for
lot
it.
of the self-healing, we like the big masters that meditated for days and days on end and weeks and hours. And I think there's a fast track to it. It's called hypnosis. And if you have someone with you and you want to heal your stuff, if you have the right guide that you can feel safe with,
Yeah.
I think you can alleviate having tens of, a decade's worth of meditation practice. Not to say that that doesn't bring other
Sure.
parts,
Can
but
also eliminate decades of talk therapy.
right now, how many times have you seen that? I've been
Oh,
in therapy
almost
for
every
10,
time
20
somebody, when
years.
they
So I'm
finally
like,
get to me, it's like, oh, I've been talking about this in therapy for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, their life, who knows? And I'm like,
right?
why?
I don't, but that's the system, right? It's
Uh-huh.
like I want you and I want to work with you for a couple months, and I want you to go be free now. I want you to go
Yes.
spread your wings and just be
Yep.
you and expand in abundance and everything else. But
Uh-huh. I always tell
yeah,
people, I'm like, I'm not looking to create life clients. I'm looking to
no,
empower you to be able to do the work your own. But that doesn't mean that I don't attract people that enjoy doing the work for longer than they might need to.
100%, 100%. And some people, they're like, look, I just want to do another round with you because
Yeah, 'cause
it
it's
just
fun.
supports me. It's fun. And I want to see,
It
because,
feels good.
right. And what I love about it is what I'm realizing now more than ever is our authentic expression is abundance. Like that's what our
Yeah.
soul is. It's whole, it's full, it's perfection. And everything else is just distortion. Everything else is just some sort of blemish on that for some reason has gotten stuck. And when we release that, and I think hypnosis is one of the most, I don't know why everybody who's in this type of field doesn't have that as training. It's so fucking incredible what happens.
Yeah.
And when we release the charge and we release those the triggers, it's like you create space. And guess what
Right.
happens? Space for the soul to that light to come in. And then all of a sudden this ability to express ourselves fully is here.
Yep.
And it's not being fought and punched and kicked and looped back. It's like, oh
Right.
wait, that's not there anymore. And then that's abundance. So that's what everybody wants. You want to return home.
Very true. Very true. So you've probably heard a lot of these things over the years too. I always get people that are like, "Oh, well, I can't be hypnotized," or they have like this thing where they think they have a block to it. What's your favorite response to that?
I usually go now. Now I go, well, I have 2,000 hours under my belt and I haven't had a single person not be able to be hypnotized. Not one, right? There might be more resistance. It might take a little bit more different tricks and techniques, but we go into hypnosis every day. This is something
Exactly.
probably,
Waking
right?
up,
It
going to
is
sleep,
waking up, go to sleep. It just happens
driving to the
naturally.
grocery store.
Exactly. And when they start to realize that, and then I also explain to them, I'm like, you're expecting this big, like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm going to go in and
Right.
dissect your thoughts and bring forward your darkest secrets. This is not how it works. And it's
Exactly.
just, and so I think it's just normalizing it
Hmm.
and just explaining it in a way that people get it. And they're like, oh, And then showing them one session of them being able to let go. And they're like, that's all it is. I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. And now we
Now
get to
just
explore.
let it go to work.
Yeah, let it go to work. Because it's something I try to, I really try my best to express, like when I'm doing the inductions and bringing them in, is like, you don't have to do anything. There's nothing to search for, make happen, create. It's just going to naturally flow as it is right now. And then that just all of a sudden, and when they jump into the river of that flow, magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you
Sure.
said, decades of stuff, just poof. Mm-hmm.
So when you disconnected from God at that early
Yep.
age and then came back, what was the difference for you? Was it that like direct connection, or what changed for you that you were, so separate from it for so long, and then it was this like new, wonderful experience
I
that you've
think
been
from,
deepening?
yeah, for me, I think it all really took us. So two moments happened. One moment I talk about this moment with God, like it's a moment that will forever be ingrained in my memory and my heart. It was around the same time of my dark night of the soul kind of, and it was around 20, it was 2016. So this was kind of before I had the accident, but this was a moment that I couldn't deny. My daughter had just been born in November. It was January or February 2017. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually same year as that, but about a year separate. And I decided I just needed to get outside. It was a sunny day, like -5, not much wind, bluebird skies, like crisp winter day. And we lived on 10 acres. So I decided to throw my daughter, bundled her up in the stroller, and I just said, I'll go start walking on my dirt road that I had out front. And I was walking and I decided to throw some Zen music I picked up on Spotify, and I threw it in my pocket. And I'm just going to go outside. And I just walked and I started walking. And within about 2 to 3 minutes of walking, everything just started to go kind of slowed down. And I was like, this is interesting. The music's playing and I'm feeling really light. My heart's feeling really big. And I'm like, and all of a sudden I just started to be able to tune into every blade of grass that was coming out of the ditch. I was looking at the sun, and you know how the sun and the wind kicks off the snow off the trees and it just kind of glimmers and shimmers.
So pretty.
I could pick apart every crystal with my
Mm.
awareness. I could tune into the needles of the pine cone. It was
It's
for
like how I
about
feel like when I get a new glasses prescription.
maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was after my LASIK. I don't know. It's like, wait a minute.
I still remember taking my now 14-year-old to get glasses when he
Yeah.
was maybe around 10, and we put them on for the first time, and the look of awe on his
Yeah.
face, the way he
Right.
could see things was probably
Right.
similar to what you were experiencing. He's like, whoa, like there's actual
Well,
blades of grass. It's not just a green
yeah.
blob, or, oh, it was beautiful.
But it was the fact that everything was now and not even moving forward. So it's like every time I could focus in on things that to me humans shouldn't be able to. Like it was so slow and present. And
Hmm.
my heart was wide open to the point where I was loving the pine cones. The trees were loving me back. I was part of one. I was oneness. I was whole in that moment. And it was about a 12-minute, 13-minute time. And I remember feeling my daughter, like I didn't even have to look at her. I could just feel her on a different level. And I was crying tears of joy
Hmm.
after feeling absolute like garbage for a year and a half. Tears of joy are just flowing down my cheeks. And I'm in this moment with God. And I'm just like, this is absolute perfection. And yeah, so that was the part where I was like, holy shit. And then I went to Guatemala. So I did a month-long retreat in Guatemala at a place called San Marcos La Laguna, which is on Lake Atitlan in the Guatemalan mountains,
Okay.
surrounded by 3 active volcanoes, incredible vortex of energy. I had some friends who had done this. They call it the moon course. It's full moon to full moon. And I was just getting into this whole spiritual thing. This is 2019. So right when things started ramp up. And that's where I started to connect in meditation even more. We did sound bowls. We did chanting and in this big wooden temple.
Mm.
We started learning about uh, we started learning about, everything from Buddha to Jesus to the numerology to astrology to the tree of life to the Kabbalion to all these different mystical and philosophies. And I was in awe. And I was like, oh my God. It just made me realize it all came back to the same thing. And that was the first time I really realized that it all came back to the same thing. And so that's where I found that was enough to invite me into my own discovery of what God was.
Okay.
And so that's where I feel like I really connected to God, is because when I allowed it to be from my experience and my, so it wasn't through the church. It wasn't through even a specific way. It was just like, oh, I'm discovering God through my pain and through my surrender. And
Mm.
so that's where I found it. And it's still a continuously, I think, an evolving process of what that looks like.
Sounds like it. Pretty cool
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
Cool journey. I know embodiment exercises are a big part of your practice
Mm-hmm.
and what you do, and as well as like shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has that been part of personal growth and healing for you?
Gosh, I mean, I think in my relationships, I think that's where we'll probably see the shadow come up the most, is through our relationships. So that's been a big part. I mean, I'm going through big transitions in my life, and being able to be aware through my practice of meditation and my healing, like my hypnosis journeys and everything else,
Yeah.
it's allowed me to just be really aware and present, and now be able to sit with the discomfort. And I think what happens is you start to realize that the shadow that you've been so scared of is really not what you thought it was. And it's just like, for the people even here who have trouble sitting with yourself, even in your discomfort or your anxiety or whatever's feel like that's not what, like, yourself is not what you're scared to sit with.
Right.
Yourself is all loving expanse. It's loving awareness. You're scared to feel the emotions around basically illusion. It's the separateness of what you are. And so when you give yourself the opportunity to just be brave enough to sit, you'll notice that those big demons, the big monsters in your mind, are never what you thought they were. In fact, they're a lot less powerful. A lot of them are parts of you that just need to be loved, that felt
Firm.
disconnected, right? Part of you that felt abandoned, felt not worthy, not enough. And trust me, I've had those, and I still struggle with some of those things. But the more you sit with them and give it presence and consciousness, uh, I think it's been one of the biggest gifts, is to be able to sit with myself.
It does take practice.
Oh yeah. Well,
For
because
sure.
it's so scary.
Continuing.
It's scary at first, because it's like, this is uncomfortable. I'd rather not right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but that's your key to freedom. It's like a big neon. Your trigger is a big neon sign going, here. Here's where we are disconnected from the truth of abundance, love, and all that is. We just got to bring this to consciousness. So it's hurting. It feels like this, but it's not what it feels like
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
So true. I know
Mm-hmm.
you're also like really passionate about helping people clear ancestral trauma.
Yeah.
So, what can you tell us about that process and how that's impacted you personally and like work with others?
That's happened kind of just like naturally evolved. And a lot of my clients, the ones that are really able to let go, and that happens through the program too. Like you notice this, I'm sure, is like session 1 versus session 4, or even 3, or even 2, sometimes very different. Once they get used to knowing that they're safe and feeling that that space is being held, where they go, we never know. And the opportunity to heal through generations is there. And I've even done it. Oh, here's a cool story. I wanted to clear some, I can't remember what I was working on with myself in hypnosis one day, and I was being guided by one of my mentors. And she just asked, she's like, well, what does the soul need to clear this? And I said, well, it's not mine. I said, but I can go clear it. And I remember saying that very clearly. And I basically went back into a memory that was my ancestors. wasn't even my memory. This was my ancestor who moved from France to Quebec to Manitoba in like the 18 something. And I could literally sit with his soul, and I could see his soul just being crumpled over like this. And there was this trauma and this deep sadness of like, it's just survival at that time. You lived in Manitoba, central Canada in the 1800s. You're chopping wood, you're surviving, you're hunting, you're barely, and the winters are 40 below for weeks on end. Like, it is cold. It's colder than Mars
on fire all year round.
Right. And so we were able to travel through time and travel through different spaces where we were able to bring healing to that. I don't know how many generations past that was, and do quantum work with that soul. And it looks different all the time. It's when we allow things to process and allow things to be brought up and not push it away or not label it, it's incredible what we can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because we do our own energy work. That's what we're energy workers, every one of us.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, everything's energy. How can we not?
Everything's energy. So yeah, so that's what I really love. And often sometimes I'll ask, I'll say, is this deeper than yours? Does it go further? And if it is, it's like, well, we can travel to where it needs to go. The soul knows. Yeah. I often love to just let go of what my training is sometimes and ask those questions to the higher self, to the soul.
Sure.
What needs to be done? And it's
better guidance is available.
Much smarter than me. Yeah, much smarter than me. Yeah. Sure.
Oh my goodness. I love this conversation. I'm so glad that we were able to talk today and to share these stories with everyone. If people want to follow you, know more about you, learn about your offers, where can they find you?
Yeah, most of my stuff, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Joey Labossiere. The only different one would be on TikTok. It's Joey Labossiere #2. Okay. I got banned at one point. Go there. So check me out there. You can go to joeylabossiere.com as well. That website's getting revamped right now, but easiest just through social media for sure.
Amazing. I'll make sure all of that's in the show notes. And we also did an awesome workshop together a couple of months ago. So if anybody wants to see us doing some of our magic together, along with our buddy Tyler Dudding, I have that replay for you in my school community. You just need to go to school, and that's skool.com/discovery. On that page, type in my name, Theresa Lear Levine. You'll see the Becoming More Me community pop right up. Join it and send me a DM. I'll send you the replay. And you can get a little live coaching from both of us from that. It was a whole relationships workshop, and I thought it was pretty fabulous. So we did a good job on that one, Joey.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. Anything you'd like to wrap up with or share as we're getting towards the end?
No, just do the work. Whoever's listening and you're feeling resistance to it and you have that stuff coming up and looping, find someone you can trust. Find someone like Theresa. Find someone like myself. Do the research. And I would say the biggest thing is find the person that your energy really resonates with, because
so important.
It's the safety aspect. If you can find someone that you could see yourself letting go with, it could literally change your life within weeks.
Really
within weeks. And so do the work. It's always worth it. It's worth it for you. It's worth it for your kids.
Yes.
And you'll never, ever regret it. It's not always easy, but it's beautiful on the other side.
So true. Thank you so much for that, Joey. And thank you for being here. I'm so glad.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for all of you listening, I know there's so many choices when it comes to podcasts. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Becoming More Me. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.